When I think about the menopause, the one word that relates to me is a battle. How about you, Sarah? What word comes to mind for you?
I just think of older age. It's not anything that I would think of myself at 30 would be anything I'm thinking about, because I've got a long way to go to get there.
I can relate to that actually, because never did I ever imagine that I would go through the menopause at 37. My hysterectomy was something in a crazy way that I was excited about, because I'd suffered for 25 years with endometriosis and adenomyosis. So I was looking forward to being out of pain. I remember waking up from surgery, and to begin with, they were only going to do a partial hysterectomy, so they didn't really discuss the menopause, because they described that my ovaries would be still in and that would naturally happen over the years. But when I woke up, it wasn't the pain I remembered. I was just dripping, absolutely soaking. And when my husband said to the nurse, well, what's the matter with her? Why is she like this? And she said, we've had to take her ovaries. Her body is just in shock. And she is in full-blown menopause.
My experience is different but similar, I guess. 2 years ago I had breast cancer. I'm okay now, physically okay.
That's really good.
I had a mastectomy and a reconstruction, and then I didn't need any chemo or radiotherapy, but I was put on a drug called tamoxifen, and my cancer was hormone fueled, so the tamoxifen suppresses all the hormones, estrogen basically. But all of a sudden I was having hot flushes and also didn't know what was going on in my brain at all, and was piling on weight. The problem is that I take this medication to prevent cancer reoccurring, which I would do anything to do. But then, you know, every day I take the tablet and I'm like, this is going to give me hot flushes and it's going to make my brain not work.
You know the word, you just can't think of it.
Yeah.
And then like a day later, you'll be like, oh, that was the word.
It's misty
Yeah,
in your mind,
yeah,
isn't
yeah,
it? It's,
yeah.
I've always really prided myself on being really sharp and having a great memory. And all of a sudden, I can't remember anything. And I've got people in my team saying, we talked about that yesterday.
Listening to what you guys have just said and looking back at school, I just thought that one day a woman will go through menopause and she will no longer be able to have children. And as you get older, you might hear people talk about hot flushes. Like that's the maximum really that you really hear people talk about. And they usually joke about it because I think maybe it's a bit awkward, or why am I hot and everyone else is cold? So I'm just going to make a joke out of it. So that's the only interaction or anything I've really heard about menopause. So hearing about brain fog, and like I would be so annoyed that I can't remember something that someone has said to me, but hearing about it now is kind of like prep, because really and truly it's something that every woman's going to go through.
I remember specifically my mum making jokes about hot flushes and stuff, but you don't know what they really mean. I wasn't quite sure my mum really knew what it meant. I think listening to what you're saying here now, it reinforces the fact that it needs to be a bigger, broader conversation.
Yeah.
What you guys said about this kind of thing wasn't talked about when you were younger, certainly not covered in school. You know, as a guy, as somebody who's not going to experience it myself, but will have people at work, family members that do experience it.
I've got he'll be 16 next month. And the one thing I suppose that I am glad that's come out of it is that he is more educated around it and he's more respectful of it.
What would you say are the top things I could do to support someone?
A few of my colleagues, they've asked me their mail and they've said to me, you know, when my wife goes through it, you've made us more aware of it. And when my wife goes through it, what advice would you give? And I said, one, you need to listen and really listen and take that on board. Two, you need to reassurance. And three, I said, more than anything, that for me personally, I just needed my husband to be patient, and I still need him to be patient because the road is not clear yet.
Up until very recently, I kind of never really thought about the subject, but the more and more I've been part of and listening to, it helps you understand more and just be there for people that are experiencing the things that you guys have described. It's not nice to know that people are facing into those things by themselves and how it makes them feel, whether that's at work or in personal life.
About 4 years ago, I had a mini stroke to my eye, which was over and it was all sorted out and it was all okay, when I started to go through the menopause, I went to my GP and they said there's not much we can do for you because of the risks of medication. Because you've had a stroke, there is a risk of further stroke. So I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I sort of suffered in silence for a while and the symptoms were worse. But then I joined the Talking Menopause Cafe back in February, and I reached out and said, is there anybody that has any advice? And the guys on that call were just great. They said, have you thought about this, this and this? If you go back to your GP and say, this is what I need and why I need it, and this is why the risks are minimal. And I did. I went in there and said, this is what I want. I'm not leaving here until you help me. And they helped me. And it's made a really big difference to me. It stopped the flushes. I sleep better. And I just feel better, more confident and just myself again. So I've got my spark back.
Just, you know, chatting to you now, understanding that there are people out there might be things that they do that can help you. There's just so much support, and you're not on your own really going through it.
Yeah.
The more people talk about it, the more we're able to learn and prepare and know how to support people and eventually support myself.
My colleague and I decided we were going to do something for World Menopause Day within our team. So imagine there's a mixture of men, women, and so we did the session, and it was quite scary because, you know, it's not an easy subject to talk about, but we did it and we were so pleased. What was interesting was the people that reached out to us afterwards were all guys, and they said, God, I didn't know all of that stuff. That makes so much sense now. And then there was a guy in his 20s. He said, I understand my mum now.
Yeah.
And so it was really nice that we were able to share that information and just, you know, people talking about it.